title trouble, right? Nobody wants to have title trouble when you buy a house. And we ran into title trouble because the owner that we bought the house from, he forgot to record our easement, right? And so we had this big lawsuit, just total disaster, right? And so some of this can be fixed by having some of this recorded publicly on the blockchain. That's really what, you look at what property records are, you look at the copyright records are, it's literally just, you know, a public record that this is who owns what, right? And that's what the blockchain is really good at, is being to distribute that, make it much more fair, and also easier to transact. So there's lots of applications of blockchain technology for government.
Yeah, one thing is we just ended the primary in California, and you have to work very hard, knocking a lot of doors. And one quick question is in terms of money, I think it's a lot of developers, real estate, and business in the construction industry. They realize the whole connection of politicians with business is anyway you can explore a little bit. And what's the business in this particular industry with the local government or even to the state and the federal level?
Yeah, it's a good question. Right now, especially in Palo Alto, has any of you guys ever heard the term NIMBY? NIMBY? Okay. So NIMBY means not my backyard, and that's actually quite strong in Palo Alto. So all the developers in Palo Alto suffer because it's really hard to do development, right? Whether you're adding on a bathroom or you're building a new building, it's very, very tough. And so a lot, how hard it is to build is really related to who's elected. And so, for instance, in Palo Alto, I got elected on a pro-development, pro-housing platform. And so that helps it helps make it a little easier to build in the city than not. And so I'm sure a lot of developers know this, but who's on the city council matters a lot in terms of what can be built, how long can be built, how easy or hard it is to build stuff. So it's a critical aspect, and pretty much for a city, it's controlled by city council. It's a municipal decision. It's not a state or a federal level. But recently, there's been laws that have been passed on the state side, on the state level, that have forced cities to make it easier to build. And so some of those bills have come down to things like Palo Alto, where we have to loosen up our restrictions for building. So for instance, I heard some people here talking earlier about ADUs. So in Palo Alto, technically, every single house now can build an ADU. And before that law passed in the state, you couldn't do it. Now you can.
I think it's the last question regarding a little bit related to your election. You have been on the city council. That's the almost lowest municipal government levels. But you jumped into the congressional as a candidate to run the Congress. Between city and federal level, there have a state level. A lot of the development are related to the state level legislature. So it's, could you explore a little bit how federal policy or the law is going to affect the real estate industry?
Yeah, right now, not too much, right? On a federal level, there's not too much. There's HUD, housing urban development, so those grants are there. But for the most part, most of the control is on the local level. Some of it is on the state level. Increasingly more is on the state level. But a lot of cities have been pushing back on this because they're not happy with the more less restrictive development standards that the state is pushing down. On the federal level, there's a lot of people who are complaining about housing, lack of affordable housing. And so there might be a chance that some of this might hit the federal level, but so far it's really at the state level. I think on the federal level, what most of it comes in is more like housing subsidies, for low-income housing, things like that. But in terms of restrictions of zoning rules, it's pretty much right now on the local and state level.
Thank you, Greg. Is there anyone from the audience, if you have any question to the Palo Alto or to the Cupertino or to the federal or state, you can raise your hand and you can answer the question. But for me, it's done. Go ahead.
You mentioned about the ADU. Do you expect that to end in 2025? And what will be the city status after the state planning?
Okay, so the question was, what do I think about the ADU law? Is it going to stay? after the state restriction ends or state mandate ends. I think that, so if I look at a city, there's kind of a relatively small but extremely vocal group that's against building new housing. Most people actually are okay with it, but there's a small local group. So I think because of that and because of the democracy, I think rules will start to loosen up. And so I think the state is kind of in a permanent direction to try to get more involved. Now, what's happening though is a lot of cities are starting to push back on that. And there's lawsuits and things like that. So we'll have to see how that turns out. So this is more of a judicial question. But I think ADUs are going to here to stay. But the big question, of course, in California is that we're actually losing population. That's the loss of congressional seats. So, but there's still a trend towards urban cities, although that with COVID is going to die down quite often. That's a good question.
Thank you.
One similar question. Along with the ADU law, there's been a lot of news about SB 9, which allows owners to split their lots and build more. We've also heard a lot of different cities like Woodside trying to get around that by designating themselves as a mountain habitat. And I was just curious what Palo Alto's approach to instituting SB 9 will be.
Yeah, good question. So he's asking about SB 9. SB 9 is a rule which, or a law that came from the state that makes cities, the mandates that they have to loosen up their development rules. And so one of the comment here was that Woodside, they declared part of their city to be a mountain line protection zone. I forgot exactly what it was. And from what I heard, actually, I heard that there's a lot of legal challenge to that. And so I don't know how successful they're going to be. I think for us in Palo Alto, pretty much we're following the state law because we have to, because the state law trumps local law. So we're pretty much complying with it, but not much more beyond that. Good question.
Thank you. Any more questions? If no more, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you about your city's commitment to affordable housing, and what is the long-term plan? Because these workers, until they're replaced by machines, you still need somebody to run 7-Eleven, and they got to live somewhere nearby to their families and seniors as well. But seniors being closer to their, children, so to speak. So, what is the level of commitment of the city? Where are we going with the Palo Alto, especially in the context of India's of how cities is?
It's a good question. So the question is basically, what is Palo Alto doing around its commitment around affordable housing? So pretty much everyone that runs for city council says they want affordable housing. Not a single one of them, because if you don't say that, you don't get elected. So everyone says they want affordable housing, but very few actually will take the steps to actually do affordable housing. So I think, for our city, for Palo Alto, we pretty much drained our affordable housing funds. We spent every single penny of it. And we have a fund that's allocated just to affordable housing, and we push them all on affordable housing. Affordable housing, in order to make it affordable, the city puts a lot of money in. And it's actually crazy expensive. So the city spends a ton of money on affordable housing, but it can't do very much of it because it's so expensive to build. And one problem in Palo Alto is that we don't really do that much development anymore. So we have relatively little new development in our city. And as a result, our affordable housing fund is pretty much totally drained. Like it's like totally dry. There's no money left. So our city, even though some of us actually want to build more affordable housing, we can't afford it. We simply have no money. With that said, my thoughts of how do we actually solve some of the affordable housing crisis is to actually build smaller units. Because if you look at the average rent family, it's been getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Fewer and less and less kids. So the average family is getting smaller. But if you look at the average house size, it's actually getting bigger. The average square foot per person is going up. So every decade it's going up and up and up. So while houses are getting bigger, our families are getting smaller. So really, maybe the answer is not such a big house, right? If you look at other parts of the world, you see a family of 4 living in 500 square feet, right? Now in America, we think, oh my God, that's too small. But in other countries, that's not usual. So especially if you live in cities where you just go downstairs, your living room is the cafe downstairs. So I think that has to be part of the discussion because the fundamental issue is that we're 8 billion people on Earth right now, right? A lot of people on Earth. There's only so much land. The population of humans is going up exponential, and the land is not growing. So you have to have like probably small units per person fundamentally, and that's I think probably the open stage is that because small units are inherently more affordable.
Good. I think that we end the conversation here. But welcome everyone. You have a social time, mingle time, know each other, make a friend. And I think it's this place is I've been host many events, and I thank David to come here, and also thank you Carl to sponsor the event. And I think it's a wonderful place to come here. And also I see a lot of you is with the Asian face. If you really want to do good business, support a candidate, support good candidate like a Greg, and also in the after primary, we have a lot of Asian get into the primary, go to the general election. So if you have $100, $200, $500, support the candidate that you like. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Greg and Dawn. And that last question was